So I want to hear the candidate's story. Like, what did they go to school for? Why did they choose to study that? What were some of those first jobs they had? Like, really thinking through like how they've made decisions, what they're proud of, where they've failed, and what they've took from it, and just
Hmm.
going through their whole journey. And the reasoning behind this is because past behavior and history are like amongst the strongest signals we have for future performance, right? And like a resume kind of flattens that into like logos and those biases come
Yes.
up.
This is Looks Good on Paper, a podcast from Willow about flipping the script on traditional hiring. I'm Ian Chohan, and every episode I put big voices in hiring and work culture through 3 quick-fire questions, speed dating style, to get the habits, trends, and ideas that matter. Hi, and welcome to this week's edition of the Looks Good on Paper podcast powered by Willow. Today, I have Simran Sidhu joining us. She is a people and talent leader who has spent her career building the hiring and people functions at startups and scale-ups from the ground up. She's currently at Shopify, where she leads talent acquisition on the commercial side, and before that, held roles spanning talent acquisition and people operations at companies including Relay, Pocket HR, and out of office HR. She's deeply involved in the HR and talent community across Toronto, which is also crazy because I haven't met her until this moment, and we've both been in the space. But what I really love about what I've seen online and what I've heard about you, Simran, is that you're known for your transparency around career breaks, out, and what it actually means to build a career that doesn't consume the rest of your life. Did I miss anything in your intro? How did you get here?
No, that's awesome. That was a perfect intro. Yeah, I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for having me. And yeah, I've been in the people and talent space for a while. Um, so much more to learn, but like really excited to share what I've learned so far.
Amazing, amazing. And I know it's kind of like one of those things where it's like talent, it's just like the people that we work with. It changes, the needs change. So, I have some really great people from the community from North America, from the EU, from UK on the podcast. And it's so interesting because all of them, no matter how long they've been in the game, will always be like, I'm still learning.
Yeah. Yeah, especially with like AI coming up, it's like it almost feels like you put your head down to work for a week and you're like almost behind. I'm like, well, what happened in the week? And I'm like, oh my God, I missed a new tool or something. Um, so
Absolutely.
it's changing, and just even year to year, it's like wild to see the change. Yeah.
You know, I know this is just like one industry. I can see this in every other industry as well. But the good news is we're actually going to talk about this stuff
Yeah,
with
exactly.
the podcast. So without further ado, why don't we jump into our questions? You know the drill. 3 questions, speed dating style. First one is, what's the biggest hiring mistake companies keep making even though it's clearly not working?
Yeah, this one's so interesting. I took some time to think about this because I was like, oh, it feels like there's so many. But for me, what I've noticed is just moving too slowly on decisions. And let me expand on that. So a lot of hiring managers fall into the trap of like, I just want to keep looking. Like, I want to see what else is out there and maybe someone better is coming. Um, but the best candidates don't always wait around, and indecision can be really costly. So a big part of that issue is hiring managers aren't often calibrated on what great looks like before they kick off their process and start interviewing. What I see happen really often is we get a strong first batch of candidates. Like, I'm sourcing, I have other sourcers going after like a brand new talent pool, but the hiring manager hasn't developed their bar yet of what great looks like.
Hmm.
So they don't get that urgency they deserve. And it's only after you've met a few not so aligned candidates that they look back and they're like, that first batch was actually really strong. And by then, these people have moved on or we've rejected them because we weren't sure. Um, so I was like, oh, what is the fix for this? And I
Hmm.
think it's simple in theory, but do the work up front to think through what great really looks like for the role. So that way when you see it, you recognize it and you can move quickly. You're like, I know that's the person I want to hire. And you have to think through like what does great look like in terms of skills, like really like iron that out. And
Yeah.
then on the flip side as well, like what does great look like in terms of a fit, whether that's culture, team, environment,
Mhm.
like what traits does this person need to possess for them to be successful here? And having a really clear, like almost like a scorecard or rubric. And really noodling on it with your team of like who's the right person that's going to succeed in the role. That way, when you interview them, you're like, hell yes, like that's exactly
Yeah.
before versus like,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm not sure. And then you do this song and dance for months. And then you've talked to everybody and you're like, well, now what? Do we go back to somebody we've already rejected? And nobody wants to do that. So yeah, that's what
No.
I see come up time and time again, but it takes like really good calibration up front.
Yeah, I really love that word calibration. I think like, it's there's often that kind of dissonance between what the hiring manager thinks they also want and what's actually going to be really great from a people function, understanding also the ROI and understanding the roles fit within the business function as well, I think is often missing. So it's like the hiring manager might have the scope like this, like I know what I need for my product team. I know what I need for my the next 4 quarters, right?
Yeah.
But are they always able to even tie that back to the business
Yeah.
itself?
Yeah. It's also like, what do you need immediately, but what do you need a year from now when the business
Yeah.
changes? 2
Yeah.
years from now, like, is this person still the same person? So just having to like, you have to be able to zoom in and zoom out and be like, what's the immediate problem and the future problems that this person will solve and be able to like get clear on that. And yeah, it takes a bit of reflection and you really have to encourage that up front with your hiring managers.
Absolutely. And I think it's like also, I've been a hiring manager as well. And it's like my own my own needs as like a leader, and I want to bring the person that fits with me. I think it's really interesting, right? Each individual business function within a company has their own, like that person has their own needs to fulfill as
Yeah.
well, right? So
Yeah.
these are things that we have to like balance when we're doing stuff like this. So I really appreciate that because during the last like 3 seasons, no one's actually had this answer because and we're hearing it more too, like to your point, like what you're gonna you're gonna turn someone down if they don't seem good up front, and then you're gonna go back to them eventually. That
Yeah.
does not a good look, not a good
Not a good
branding and employer branding type of
no.
situation. And then we're hearing, and I'm seeing on like Reddit forums and subreddits and posts like that, where it's like, I was waiting months to hear back as well, right? So this is this is not just a problem for the business, it is the external branding that gets impacted too.
Yeah. And yeah, and like that's why you sometimes hear people saying it's like I've seen this job posted for months and like keeps getting reposted. And sometimes that's because the hiring manager isn't calibrated, right? That's it can also answer candidates' questions of like, why is this job always live? But it's like sometimes
Absolutely.
you've had this problem up front and it has like the implications onwards. So then you're really looking for
Absolutely.
the needle in the haystack when you really shouldn't have to.
No,
So
exactly. Especially when you had especially if you're coming from, first of all, right now, there's just such you know, we're seeing thousands of applicants to one
yeah,
job, right? And like, what you turn them down, you don't move fast enough and then you lose them. And yeah, it might not be the right time and someone else better might come. But at the same time, I appreciate that calibration, the optimization for what you do get when you first put
yeah.
up the JD, let's say.
Yep. Yeah, and not
Awesome.
having somebody in seat, like, costs a lot of money too, so you don't want the
Yeah.
role to be open for 6, 7 months.
No,
Um,
absolutely not. And the time it takes also, I always think about the cost of hiring and the
yes,
process of hiring. And we just sometimes forget it though, right? It's one of those things that we don't focus enough on that, the cost of doing X, Y, or
yeah,
Z.
yep, it takes a lot of interviewer hours.
Absolutely. All right. Now, moving on to question number 2. What's a hidden bias companies unknowingly have even when they think that they're being progressive in their hiring?
Yeah, I've seen this so often, but, I feel like it's less so now, but the assumption of, like, big tech is the best breeding ground for talent. I think it made sense many years ago, when those organizations were, like, leaner and, like, you could have outsized impact there, but many of these companies now have lots of layers and, like, organizational complexity, which makes it really hard to actually develop the kind of scrappy, high impact, like, skills you might be looking for. So you end up with a lot of concentration of, like,
Hmm.
solid middle of the pack performers rather than, like, standout talent.
Okay.
And I've spent my time interviewing a lot of them, so I'm just like, they just feel meh for such a great,
Yeah.
like, logo behind them. And I think it's just, like, there's just so many people there. So my encouragement to, hiring managers is always to just broaden the search. Like, sure, you could want somebody from here and there, but like, let's go out and just talk to
Yeah.
all these different, industries and sizes and just focus on the core skills and traits that the role demands. And industry background can be a factor, but it shouldn't
Hmm.
be a filter that like narrows down your pool so early. And at Shopify, we do a really good job of that, of just like talking to candidates across all industries and companies, because to us, what matters more is just the proven impact they were able to make at these places.
Amazing.
Um, And just a personal story, like it's not even just big tech, I would say. I think there's just sometimes such a strong preference for a certain background. So I remember earlier in my talent career, I was hiring for a senior role, and leadership was really set on finding somebody that came from a consultancy background. And their
Mm.
reasoning made like good sense on the surface. Like consultants work really hard, they're adaptable, and they can get up to like speed in a new industry really quickly. But I kept flagging, like as I interviewed more and more consultants, like, and they went through the process and the case study, like they just weren't really aligned on like the impact and execution. And consultants are
Mm.
really great at like doing all the work and proposing all the
Yeah.
solutions, but then they move on. Like that's the nature of their work, which makes total sense. So we kept
Mhm.
seeing that gap come up in the interviews. And the depth that we were looking for just wasn't there. So we ended up making the hire. And sure enough, like the same concern surfaced once the person joined, right? And I think it was a really like good learning opportunity for the manager and for me. Like I was like pretty junior in my career. So I advocated, but like now if I saw that again, I would be like, hey, listen, this I've done this many
Yeah.
times now. And I've made this
Yeah.
like hire so many times that let me just flag this even earlier and like really come with the why this might not work and why we should broaden the search. And just like a reminder on the clarity that like what the role actually demands comes before any preference of like where someone can come from. Because like the root of that of like
Yes.
working hard, being adaptable, getting up to speed quickly is like you can find that in a lot of industries versus just consultants.
It's
So just
true.
kind of like stripping away those biases of like
Hmm.
those core things you look for can exist in other places.
Absolutely. And sometimes in the places you don't think. And a person that you wouldn't expect that would then ends up being someone that is like your star performer or, that was kind of like the one where you're like, I'm just gonna take a shot. But
Yeah.
I think it was last season we had Sarah Shake from she's
Yeah.
the chief of staff
She's
at
awesome.
yeah, she is amazing. We love her. I loved talking to her because she was first of all, she's no nonsense, which I love. And number two, she was right off the bat, she was like, I just hire generalists. If I can see, like, that you have some of these core soft skills I need in my company, it doesn't matter where you come from, and we'll put you in something. If that doesn't work, but you're still keen, we'll move you to something that works better. We'll give you the opportunity to try different things.
Yeah. And I think where she's at, Loop, like it works perfectly for that.
Yes,
And especially when
absolutely.
I was at startups as well, like super small and scrappy, it's like I just need somebody that's like gonna figure it out and like has the drive and wants to figure it out. I think that's the
Yeah.
biggest thing. And then there's like stages in your career where you're just like, I want somebody who's probably got like depth and breadth in their area. Um, so it all depends, but like you can find that across so many
You,
industries. Like,
you really can.
yeah, it's like I can understand the industry and like sure we could talk to all those people, but I think using it more as like a data point of like, hey, I spoke to X number of people from this company. Here's what I'm seeing in their talent. Like I use that almost as like a hey, now I know about this company's talent. Like what type of talent is there? What do they focus on? What are some of the challenges they work through? So it kind of like helps map out like the market. Um,
Hmm.
and like just give those insights back to the hiring manager and like also helps with like future searches.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right. So thank you. And moving on to number three. If you were suddenly to remove CVs from your hiring process, what would that look like?
I love this question because it's actually like a really big reason why I joined Shopify. And I feel like it would look like what Shopify's done with what we call our life story interview. So it's really moving that focus away from job titles and company names and towards the things that actually predict success. So I want to hear the candidate's story. Like, what did they go to school for? Why did they choose to study that? What were some of those first jobs they had? Like, really thinking through like how they've made decisions, what they're proud of, where they've failed and what they've took from it, and just
Hmm.
going through their whole journey. Um, and the reasoning behind this is because past behavior and history are like amongst the strongest signals we have for future performance, right? And like a resume kind of flattens that into like logos and those biases come up.
Yes.
Um,
Yes.
and honestly, like something we talk about at Shopify a lot is like with AI now, like most people can do a decent job at most things. Like we expect you now to be able to do the job and do it well.
Yes.
Like, you have a whole tool that will help you do it.
It's
Um,
true.
so what I'm really vetting for when I do these life story interviews is like taste, judgment, agency, like people who can articulate the why behind their decisions and not just the what. And like you could throw something into, Claude, ChatGPT, but like, do you really understand like why you're
Yes.
prompting that? And like, what's the reasoning behind it? Can you then take that and deliver to a leadership team. What the heck do they want to see versus like what does your team want to see? And how a candidate thinks now is just as important as what they've done. So the real question I'm trying to get out of those interviews is like based on everything I'm hearing about how this person has operated, the impact they've had, the calls they've made, how they've grown, do I have enough evidence to believe that they'll succeed here? And if the answer is yes, like the company name
Onward.
becomes a lot less relevant, right? I've hired some people from companies I have no idea about, but like the life stories were phenomenal. And it's just like all the traits and skills they were there. And I feel like that interview at Shopify is such a big data point for the whole story. So when I go to leadership and say, hey, I gave this person a hell yes on their life story interview, like
Yeah.
that holds a lot of weight. Not just about the technical, it's not the, like I have a seat at the table and like I have to be able to articulate why I think this person would be such a strong fit here based on what I heard in their life story. So it's
Thing.
it's such a fun interview to do as well. Is like it's so non-conventional. I get to sit and talk to somebody about their story
Yeah.
for about an hour, and it's really it's like it's a nice thing to do. Like I actually really enjoy it. I don't find it draining. It's like it's also really great for them. I get a lot of feedback from candidates as like,
Yeah.
wow, I've never felt so like treated like a human before, and people want to know about
Oh.
me. So
Oh.
versus just like, have you done this? Have you done that? Tell me an example about that. Like
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
such a yeah, and I hope more companies like really kind of follow suit of that or like come up with another style of it because I think it's really a great way to hire.
I love the way you said it, that, these past things that we do, our stories and where we come from are such good indicators, right? I actually didn't know that Shopify did that. That's amazing. It's so cool. I think we're seeing a lot when I ask this question, we're seeing a lot of people talk about kind of like how do we present those soft skills in a better way. But I really love this, like, it's more human. It's like this is who this person is. And it is a very big part of what you bring to work. It's who you are.
And we want people to show up to work like as themselves and bring your whole story to work. And just getting them to like, when I first heard I was just like, does your past always like, predict your future? Because I'm like, I've made some mistakes in the past, right? But it's also like how you articulate it and just like, hey, here's all the mistakes I made and like I've learned from them. And like just getting like people that are very honest about that, like I think that's like a biggest sign as well. It's like, yeah, I just own it. Like I made that mistake and here's what I learned from it. And it's like, okay, that's actually what we're looking for versus like, you made all these mistakes again. I think you're gonna make them again.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And like, yeah, the awareness or the ability to say kind of like, this is something maybe a project I worked on or I was so passionate about. And would I say it was successful? Maybe not. Here's what I do different, right? Give them an opportunity to actually share those stories or their thinking. And I think you get so much from it. You give them a really good opportunity to share themselves and be heard at the same
Yeah,
time. It's
exactly.
really important. All right, now moving on to our wild card question. So we kind of touched lightly on it. We know that that there's like a massive boom with AI. Companies are using it to screen. Candidates are using it to apply. It's really tough to actually pick up on those good signals about who could be a good hire. How would you increase trust in hiring? Like, how do you know that you're hiring the right person, or what type of signals do you see right
Y-
now?
Yeah, yeah. I think there's a few things. It sounds so funny to say, but, like, if I see a human and I get a human response, like, I don't even care if there's this spelling mistake, I'm like, "Okay, great." Like, I could almost tell you haven't used the AI, like and when I go through applications, I'm like, everybody's saying the same things, and, like, all the resumes are trying to look the same. So I've added, like, optional video so I can, like, get to see the person, what they have to say, like
Yeah.
and the people that do it, I'm just like, "Oh, I'm so glad you did this." It's almost like a way in because I'm like, I can tell you're human. You don't even have to follow a script. And then same in some of our screens. Like we had a discussion as a team as like, hey, now we can start seeing like candidates' eyes go like this and they're reading off in a script or they have an AI bot that like is also in
Mm,
the call. It can tell them what to say after every question. I'm just like, this is getting a bit wild. But even
yeah.
just like calling that out, just like, hey, I can see you're reading from something, or are you using a tool? And like some candidates get really defensive, but actually, what we would love to hear is like, hey, yeah, I'm actually using this tool, and here's what it does, and I'm like, I've been using it out for here. Like, we would actually really rather
Smart.
prefer that, like honesty, and like you're geeking out about this AI tool because that's like kind of like around Shopify's values. Like, we want
Yeah.
to have people that are excited and want to use AI, but just being like open and upfront about like how you're using it. And also just like a reminder to be human. There's so much discourse about like fraud applications, candidates that you talk to that aren't even real, right? Like I think people are now looking for humans. So like the more you can just show up and be yourself and like ditch the script is like really important.
Huge.
Like in our process at Shopify, we even say we expect you to use AI. Please use AI in your assignments. But
Yes.
to us how you used it. Like, what did you use it
Yeah.
for? Like, how did you prompt it? Like, we want to hear about that too.
Yeah.
Versus somebody who's just like, no, I didn't do it. It's like, oh, well, we know you did.
I really appreciate that. Like, you're going to use it. Just, yeah, let's geek out on it. Let's talk about why you're using it. Let's talk. We all want to show up. Let's say, for that example, where someone's reading off a teleprompter or something, we all want to show up as our best. Why not just be honest up front about it? I think maybe we're just going to coin it on this episode. Maybe there's a lot of AI shame still around
Yes,
this stuff,
there still
right?
is.
Like,
Yeah,
big time. So
yeah.
I get it, but I appreciate that your team is having these discussions about these things.
Again, judgment, taste, and like being able to stand behind your own decision. Otherwise, you'll look back and be like, I don't remember. I just spoke to 10 candidates and I made all these AI notes. So
Yeah.
yeah, just being able to like I know it makes everything quicker, but just like having a little bit of human touch into everything really is really still important.
Absolutely agree. This is one of the biggest things. I think, like, the best companies will understand that AI is an enabler and it does not replace, and you can be human still throughout the
Yeah.
whole process. Well,
Yeah.
those are all my questions. Thank you so much, Simran. This has been amazing. I love the way you think about, hiring and the process, and I'm really excited to have this out in the world. Thank you again for joining me.
Thank you for having me. This was so fun. I really, really enjoyed it.
Thanks for joining me on Looks Good on Paper, powered by Willow. If today's 3-question sprint gave you something new to think about, hit subscribe and share with your network, because in hiring, and really in life, it's never just about what looks good on paper.